Hi everyone, it's Leela from Miss Kiss Creations. Welcome back to my channel. I am going to go through a very quick tutorial with y'all for the fall season. I will be doing a fall or coffee kind of swirl alcohol ink tumbler. Today I'm working with a 15-ounce stainless steel tumbler. I did purchase this tumbler from Walmart. I will be using Amazing Clear Cast Epoxy. And I will be using alcohol inks. The colors I'll be using today, I have about 5 different colors. I'm using Butterscotch alcohol ink. I'm using Teakwood. I will be using Caramel or Caramel. And then I will be using just orange from Pinata. And then to go on top of all that, I'm going to use white or Blanco from Pinata as well. I will be posting all of my materials in my description below, including all of my alcohol ink colors. This tumbler was a stainless steel tumbler. I went ahead and I sanded it with 180 sanding block, and then I wiped it down with 91% alcohol. After I wiped it down with 91% alcohol, I went ahead and I spray painted this tumbler matte white or flat white. It is very, very important for this tumbler to be a matte or satin finish spray paint. Do not use gloss spray paint. The reason for that is the epoxy will not have anything to stick to whenever you use your gloss spray paint. The spray paint is very smooth, and the epoxy likes to stick to rough surfaces. So that's why I like to spray it with my flat spray paint after sanding it and after wiping it down with 91% alcohol. I did mix my epoxy off camera. If you do want to know how to mix epoxy correctly or properly, go ahead and check out my description below. I do have a beginner's help video on how to mix epoxy. I mixed a total of 25 milliliters of epoxy in this Dixie Cup. So that's about 14 and a half milliliters of epoxy of part A and part B, totaling 25 milliliters. Again, I am using a 15-ounce stainless steel tumbler. Realistically, I'll probably use about 20 milliliters of epoxy, but I like to always have more than less. With this tumbler, you do want a thicker coat of epoxy on your tumbler. You don't want it thin. The reason why you want it to have a thick coat is so you can have those alcohol inks really swirl around the tumbler to create that nice swirl effect. For my next step of my tumbler tutorial, I'm going to apply my epoxy on my tumbler. And like always, there's really no rhyme or reason on how I do this. I just want a very full, thick cover tumbler. I don't want this epoxy to be very thin. I want it to be a little thicker again, so the epoxy will swirl with the alcohol inks. So I just want to make sure it is completely covered. And it looks like I'll be using about 20 milliliters of epoxy here. So you don't want to apply too much pressure to this tumbler, because if you apply too much pressure, then you're going to wipe a lot of the epoxy off. So you want to apply just enough epoxy so you have a nice thick layer of epoxy on here. And make sure you get the bottom, because we will be adding ink to the bottom. And now that my tumbler is completely covered, we're going to go ahead and add the alcohol inks to this tumbler. I'm going to start by choosing a random color. So I'm going to start with Teakwood, and I'm just going to drip this color all around the tumbler until my little heart is happy. So these tumblers are so easy. You don't overthink these. There's no messing these up. Just add the colors as you like. Now I'm moving on to my caramel color. And it's a little bit lighter than Teakwood. It's a nice caramel coffee or fall color. And next is going to be my Butterscotch. Butterscotch is a little bit more orange, so or a little bit more yellow. So I'm gonna see how this one turns out. I may not like it. Yeah, it looks more like the caramel, so I'll just keep adding it on here. This is the first time me making a fall or coffee style tumbler. So since it is fall time, Halloween time, I went ahead and I grabbed my orange. So I just thought, why not? Let's go ahead and try to have fun with this and see what happens adding this orange. So I'm adding it all around the tumbler, and this really pops with this with the butterscotch. I'm trying to fill in all the spaces that are white now. And then I think I'm gonna go back in with my Teakwood, which is that darker brown. I love Teakwood, and I'm probably gonna add more spots of that. There's also Espresso. Espresso is a really nice color from Tim Holtz. It's a nice brown. I know they have copper, So if you don't have these exact colors that I'm using, or if you have another brand of orange or brown, go ahead and use it. If you already have the materials on hand, go ahead and use what you have. Don't go out and buy unnecessary stuff. So I'm just trying to fill in these little holes. Let me add some more caramel in here. It's gonna look like a hot mess whenever you first do it. So if yours looks anything like mine, you're on the right track. If it doesn't look good, it looks good. So let's go ahead and finish that. And now that I have all of that on, I'm trying to really fill in these white spots here. Now I have all that on, I'm going to apply the white alcohol ink. That's gonna really make everything pop and kind of pop out and come together. So again, I'm using my Blanco from Pinata, and I'm just going to add that white on top of all these colors, and I'm just going to let it do its thing for right now. And if you notice, I've been adding some drips to the edge here. I'm trying to let that fall and go underneath the tumbler, on the bottom of the tumbler. And then I'm just keep adding the white. And again, it's going to look like not so good. It's not going to look good in the beginning, but that is okay. It's going to look like little cells around your tumbler. That's what I always think of. And you can see that sometimes whenever you apply the alcohol ink, it bounces off the epoxy for some reason. So that's fine too. Just let it bounce and go wherever it would like. And now that I have my white, the white kind of makes it look creamy. It makes that that coffee look, and it makes the colors kind of swirl. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off my cup turner. And then I'm going to take my tumbler and I'm just gonna let it drip up and down. And then I'm just gonna do this for however long I would like. So you can see, I'm trying to see if it's moving fast enough that you could see it on camera. You can see the epoxy really dripping down. And then whenever you're happy with it dripping down, just hold it up and down like this. And then it's gonna drip up and down as well. So a lot of y'all have probably noticed I have not used heat on this tumbler yet. I try to use as little amount of heat as I can on here, because whenever the epoxy spins after about an hour, it really starts changing. So instead of using heat, I kind of like to play with my tumbler and take it off the turner, or even turn off the cup turner and just let it sit, and then let the epoxy come right down, because you want those swirls, you want all of that. You don't want all this blotchiness. And if your epoxy tends to drip, or if it does start dripping onto your mat, that's fine. Let it drip. It's not going to hurt the tumbler. You're gonna see the dripping from the tumbler, but by the time you turn the cup turner back on and it starts to move around again, it's gonna be fine, and it's going to even right out. So I'm gonna turn back my tumbler. I'm gonna turn my tumbler back on, and then I'm going to let it spin. And you can see kind of the little areas of the tumbler kind of already swirling on there. And this is when I'm going to you can do one of two things. You can apply a little bit of heat on this step, or if you wanna fill in little areas, you can go ahead and fill in little areas around your tumbler. If there's little white areas that might be peeking through, you can go ahead and add a little bit more epoxy, or excuse me, a little bit more alcohol inks to kind of cover up those white areas. I try to make the tumbler not show the white too much. Not the white alcohol ink, but the white spray paint. So if you do it quick enough, by time your tumbler, so if you do it more early on while the tumbler isn't as cured or dried, all of that new added ink will kind of blend inside the tumbler. And if you want more of the white popping through, or more of the Blanco, go ahead and just add that around the tumbler now. And the sooner you add that is going to be the better. So you want to add that quicker. Or if you see that you want more browns, you can go ahead and add more of the Espresso or the Teakwood, whichever colors you're using. Just really play with this and have fun with it. And remember, you cannot mess this tumbler up. So I wanted to add the orange in here just to give it that Halloween, really fall look. But if you just wanted a coffee look, Obviously you wouldn't add as much orange in here as I did. So go ahead and play with that. And then once you're happy with how much alcohol ink you have on your tumbler, I'm going to now again turn off my tumbler again, and then just repeat that process that I did. I just turned it upside down and I played with it. So go ahead and do that, and the tumbler will start moving around. The inks will move around. You can see the inks are kind of moving around there. So I'm going to turn off my turner, and I notice that I have a big white spot right here, and I don't want that. So let's go ahead and fix that now. And that kind of bled. See how fast it bleeds? And then it's going to turn it, oops, heavy-handed, and it's going to turn into kind of a darker cream color. So I'm just going to turn that upside down. I'm sorry y'all can't see this on the camera, but that's where the white spot was, and now it's kind of brown. So now I'm just going to let this tumbler flow down, and you can see the epoxy kind of moving down. So this tumbler is really, really cute for the fall time. I love this. And you're just going to let it move down, and until you're happy. You could see that I added a lot of brown there. So then I'm going to flip it upside down and do the same thing. I'm sorry you can't see this on camera, but I'm just literally putting this right side up or upside down. And you can even hang it at an angle. If you want to hang it at an angle like this, you can go ahead and do that. This is your tumbler. You do whatever you want to it. And then now I'm going to put it back on the cup turner, turn my turner back on, and this is when I'm going to apply heat. The heat gun that I use is a Wagner brand. I did purchase this from Lowe's. This was about $25. I don't think they have this model anymore. I think they have something that's similar. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of heat. You don't want to put the heat too close to this because it's going to spread the epoxy, spreading the alcohol ink. So I don't know if you guys ever apply heat to your alcohol ink tumbler. The alcohol ink starts spreading and it starts looking kind of faded. That's because you're adding a lot of heat to it. So really stay back with the heat gun and add a little bit of heat to still have it kind of swirl. So I'm gonna start with my heat gun on low. Again, I want a little bit of heat on here, just my preference. If you wanna add more heat, so be it. This is your tumbler. I know a lot of people like a blotchy look. A lot of people like the really swirly look, and a lot of people like it looks like kind of striped. So however much you want your epoxy and your alcohol ink to swirl, go ahead and add that amount of heat. Remember, you can always add more heat. You cannot take it away. So if you overheat this and it starts really swirling and it starts looking like mud and all the colors are mixing together, that's just how it's going to land. So don't expect your tumbler, after you applied your heat, don't expect it to change immediately. It's going to take about 5 minutes to really start changing. So sometimes you'll be able to see, it's really cool looking at the tumblers with alcohol ink. Sometimes you're able to see the swirls kind of creating. And what I like to do is after I apply my heat, so let's say I'm applying my heat, so my tumbler is getting heated up. I'm gonna go ahead and finish with this. I have to show y'all the bottom too. So I just applied my heat, and while it is still a little warm, again, I applied it on low. While it's warm, as you know, the epoxy tends to move more while it's hot. So now I'm going to take it off the turner while it's warm and then kind of create those little swirls. So how I create the swirls is just repeating this process. So it's not kind of just like striped around the tumbler. I like more of swirls up and down, left to right. So while you have that little bit of heat on there, go ahead and take your tumbler and just let it stand upright and then upside down, and just keep playing with it until you are satisfied. Once you're satisfied with how your tumbler looks, go ahead and let it spin for about 30 minutes to an hour. And then after about 30 minutes to an hour, you're gonna see that this tumbler looks a lot different. So it's kind of cool seeing how it looks now. And then especially if you add a lot of heat, it really changes over a time frame of 20 to 30 minutes. So I'm gonna let this spin for about 30 minutes, and then I'll show you how it looks here soon. Hey y'all, so it's been about 30 minutes since I've applied my inks to my tumbler and I left it alone, so you can see how much it's changed since then. I really like how this turned out. I like how it's kind of swirling around the tumbler and not just like up and down the tumbler and not just around the tumbler. So the way I did that was, again, you take that tumbler off the turner, you put it right side up, you flip it around, you put it upside down. So I really am liking how this tumbler is turning out. I'm going to let it spin on the turner for about 6 to 8 hours. And after about 6 to 8 hours, I'll take it off and then I'll show y'all the final results. I'll see y'all then. Hey y'all, I'm back with my tumbler. It's been about 24-25 hours since I've had it on the turner. And you can see this tumbler came out so cute. I love how all of the swirls actually swirled throughout the tumbler, not just left to right. You can see the colors didn't mix, but they swirled together. I do want to mention one thing because I actually get a lot of questions and messages about this. I think it was around 10 hours of cure time. I turned off my tumbler turner around 6 hours, and then I checked on it again around 10 hours. And I did the spot check, or I tested the epoxy on my mat, and it was still sticky after 10 hours. I didn't freak out. I just waited. Sometimes it's not as sticky, but the fact that you put so much epoxy on this tumbler, it might still be sticky after 10 hours. So go ahead and still wait. Then I waited another 12 hours. So after around like 20-22 hours, it really cured up. So if the rule of thumb for me is if my tumbler does not cure after 24 hours, then I mix my epoxy incorrectly. So if it's still hour 10 or 12 and it's still not cured and it's still a little sticky, don't freak out. Just wait an extra hour or so and it should cure. If it doesn't cure after 24 hours, then you probably didn't mix your epoxy properly, or you may have mixed your epoxy with uneven levels. But I really love how this tumbler turned out. This tumbler is now complete. You can go ahead and add decals to this tumbler. You can put a name on this tumbler. You can leave it as is, however you would like this tumbler. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please be sure to give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more tumbler and craft videos. I'll see y'all next time.